Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. In this video, I'm going to show how the 2021 Asus Zephyrus G15 GA503 performs across 10 games. Its native resolution is 2560 by 1440, but I also test at 1080p in case you decide to get a 3070 laptop with that resolution. The G15 has a 3070 that runs from 80 watts to 100 watts, and its CPU is the Ryzen 9 5900HS. Now, if this is your first visit to my channel, I also suggest watching my full review of the laptop by clicking here or via the link in the description. Now, before we jump into that, I would like to announce M2 Skins, a company that is run by a friend of mine, Chris. Now, he does skins for laptops, custom skins, and he's done a nice one for me for OWNorDisown for this Asus Zephyrus G15. Now, I've got a link in the description below for a 10% off coupon code, so make sure you click on that and give Chris your support. Now, all of the testing was done using the laptop display, which, as you may well know, severely limits performance in some games. Now, for example, in Cyberpunk 2077, it takes a 21% hit. Now, first up, let's look at Far Cry New Dawn at 1440p ultra settings using the inbuilt benchmark. The first thing you will notice is that the 3070 is pulling less than the 80 watts, and the outdoor scenes take a particularly large hit, which is a shame because of the time you spent outside in this game. I test at all of the quality settings in both resolutions, so you can see if the 5900HS holds us back any. We see a slightly better scaling at 1080p as we lower settings, which suggests to me that the GPU is being starved of power. Dynamic Boost 2.0 doesn't seem to be helping much in this game. I also showed a frame rate of 125 watt 3070, also using hybrid graphics, and that is 16% faster. The 2070 Super, using its dedicated GPU, was 17% faster, and that is most worrying as prices of those laptops should be going down. Next up is Battlefield 5 using DX11 1440p ultra settings, playing the Rotterdam map. I choose DX11 and no ray tracing, as I do find that gameplay is much smoother, and that's vital for fast multiplayer game. Now, this game uses up to about 82 watts on the 3070 and 35 watts on the 5900HS. Temperatures are fine with the CPU in the low 80s and the GPU in the low 70s. You will notice that I show the integrated GPU usage notated as the GPU1 in the overlay. Now, most worryingly is that it is being used about 30% of the time. Again, I show the frame rate of the 2070 Super in dedicated GPU mode, and it is 21% faster than this 3070. The 125 watt 3070, which was 16% faster in Far Cry, is now 66% faster when switched to dedicated GPU mode. It is such a shame that Optimus robs us of so much performance. I think even my 2080 Max-Q in dedicated GPU mode is quicker than this G15, and I may do a video on that. Now, the main saving grace for the 3000 series cards in a laptop that use Optimus is ray tracing performance. Here is Cyberpunk 2077, 1440p, ray tracing is set to ultra, and DLSS is set at balanced. Now, remember, attaching to a monitor sees about a 10 FPS improvement too. The 3070 is using close to 100 watts now, with power diverted from the CPU using Dynamic Boost 2.0. Now, performance is very good. This time, the 2070 Super in the dedicated GPU mode performs about the same as 1080p, but it is 12% behind at 1440p when the GPU is taxed the most. Now, I also test using ray tracing medium and DLSS set to balanced, and interestingly, we get the same performance as the ultra preset with no ray tracing or DLSS. As we lower quality settings, we do see some very good scaling, as one might expect from a GPU bound game. I also tested Warzone using ray tracing at 1440p max settings, but I didn't use motion blur. The 3070 would generally stay at 80 watts and has good utilization in the high 90s. The CPU does get a bit hot in this game, more so than others, even hitting 88 degrees at 35 watts. Now, this suggests to me that Dynamic Boost isn't working too well in this game. Otherwise, we would be seeing some of those watts moving to the GPU. For Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I used the inbuilt benchmark. I could definitely see some flickering in this title, mainly in the light areas. it may just be this game, as I don't recall seeing it in other titles. The camera actually picks it up too. The 3070 uses up to 84 watts, and with the CPU using only about 20 watts, expect thermals to be pretty good. As this game is GPU bound, we see good scaling at both resolutions. At ultra high 1080p, we match the 2070 Super when that is in dedicated GPU mode. Now the higher powered 3070 sees an 18% gain when that too is using Optimus. So yeah, I would say that the 3070 in the G15 is about 18% slower than the 3070 Max P, which is what we would expect. Control is another game making good use of ray tracing and DLSS. Here I compare 1440p with ray tracing at medium and DLSS at the top and the same settings below, but with no DLSS. It is interesting to see, aside from the frame rate increase that DLSS brings, that the 5900HS is running about 9 degrees cooler with no DLSS. So DLSS gives a 39% boost at 1080p and a whopping 56% at 1440p, although it must be pointed out that the game renders it at a much lower resolution and then upscales it. Now for the first time I tested Fortnite using DX12 and ray tracing with DLSS set at balanced, and I was impressed with the performance, even at the native 1440p. The 3070 would use up to 90 watts and the thermals were very good. Scaling is good as with lower quality settings, although if you want to make good use of that 165Hz panel, you would likely need to disable ray tracing. For Overwatch, I use the replay feature, and I find that this game gets severely punished by Optimus. It is such a shame. I recall the 125W 3070 would limit at 227 FPS at medium with Optimus versus 296 when you use an external monitor, so it comes as no surprise that we see the same thing here. Still, it is perfectly fine for this 165Hz panel. Now I test Star Wars Battlefront 2 using single player game at DX11. I find DX12 to be quite slow in comparison. Here it is at 1440p ultra settings, and at times the 3070 goes up to actually 103 watts, but mostly it stays around 85. Thermals are great and gameplay is smooth. We see good scaling as we lower settings, so the 5900HS CPU is doing a good job. I was happy with the performance here. Finally, Red Dead Redemption 2 using high settings 1440p. I do find it incredible that we only need 15 watts on a CPU to get decent frame rates. Again, we get good scaling and expect a solid 60 FPS at 1440p medium settings. So how would I sum up the gaming performance of the Zephyrus G15? Well, if I wasn't keeping tabs on the frame rates and comparing them to other systems, I would be happy because the gameplay was always nice and smooth. You also have FreeSync from 48 to 165Hz, and the thermals are also very good. I also like the screen, and the speakers are very good as well. Now for most people this is fine, but for the enthusiast in me that screams that Optimus causes such issues, and I believe this 3070 performs similar to my 2080 Max Q or 2070 Max P from the year 2019, and it takes ray tracing to see the best out of it. Now fortunately, we will see more and more ray tracing games in the future. But for those that playing esport games, seeking high frame rates on 300Hz panels, you better make sure that you choose a laptop that can play directly off the dedicated GPU. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd like to thank you for watching. Bye now.